Greetings to another episode of the TED in Your Head podcast. I'm your host, Ted Moreno, certified clinical hypnotherapist and high performance coach. In this podcast, we seek liberation from limitation, lack, and lethargy and intentionally pursue a powerful path to personal transformation. If you're on a path, an intentional path to your own personal transformation, and you would like some support, maybe we should have a conversation. So I'll tell you how to get in touch with me at the end of today's episode, but let's get into our episode today. And I'm going to do a recap on the last podcast of every month, and I'm going to call it Out of My Head. So this is a recap for June. And what I'd like to do is recap the podcasts that I've released over the previous month. And then I want to talk about some observations, some obstacles, and some obsessions that I have that you might resonate with. So let's get right into it. We started out the month with episode 475 titled I Have Become ... Numb, talking about how I was jamming with a good buddy to Comfortably Numb, a Pink Floyd song from the 1978 album The Wall. And what I decided to do was a deep dive into the lyrics of this song, which was about a rock star who needed to get comfortably numb for the pain he was feeling before he went out to give a concert. But upon reading the lyrics a little bit more deeply and learning about the origin of this song, I realized that it is very much a description of what we all do, which is to seek to numb ourselves from the challenges of life, which is okay up to a point. The only problem is if that becomes a habit, we also numb ourselves to the joy of life as well. So check that out. Episode 475, I Have Become Numb. Episode 476 was an interview with Rohini Walker, probably one of the more interesting interviews I've ever done as far as my own resonance with the subject matter, which I would say is liberating oneself from the hypnosis of our culture and the colonial impact, as well as cultivation of a greater connection, not only with the physical body, but with the body's native wisdom. And I found my conversation with Rohini very enlightening and set me on some paths of exploration, which I'm finding very exciting. I want to let you know that Rohini just dropped the first 3 episodes of her podcast called Root and Rise, which I really enjoyed and recommend that you check it out as well. Root and Rise, and you can find it on your podcast app as I did. Episode 477, the hidden fear that you may have that you don't know that you have. I'll spill the beans. It's fear of stopping, pausing, resting, the fear of being still and doing nothing. I talk about how this obsessive need to always be doing something can result in burnout, fatigue, and anxiety. So those are the 3 podcasts that I've dropped for the month of June. You can find my podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, and iHeart.com. I would be so appreciative if you gave me some likes or shared an episode that you like or left a review or comment. Especially comment, I would be so interested in hearing what you think about these particular podcast episodes. Also, remember that you can watch me doing the podcast on YouTube at Ted A. Moreno, or you can read the text of the podcast with all the cool links at tedmoreno.com/blog. Moving on to observations, obstacles, and obsessions. I've been on a news and social media fast since last Friday, so it's been 1 week. And I have to tell you, it feels pretty good. I may do it for another week. I do admit that I scan the headlines once a day, just a brief glimpse of the headlines, but I am refraining from doing a deep dive into reading any articles, reading commercial news sources, listening to the news, and listening to podcasts or watching videos about politics. I haven't decided how I will consume social media and the news when I come off of this break, but I am much more aware of how consuming this makes me feel, much more aware of how it makes me feel and how overwhelming it can be. So I would feel myself getting angry or frustrated or sometimes even anxious. But truth is, there's nothing I can do about what's going on out there. The best thing I can do is be the best person that I can be and bring my own positive energy to the world and to the work that I do. So that's what I have to say about that. And that's something you should try, staying off of social media, staying off of the news for a week, see how you feel. Remember that many commercial news outlets are not trying to give you information, but trying to influence your point of view. Not all news platforms, but many of them. And so this is a form of hypnosis and not the good kind. I'll be doing a podcast soon about the hypnosis of our culture. So keep an eye out for that. This month, I'm being called to pay attention to the subject of transitions. I find it interesting how these topics kind of come in waves, alerting me to pay more attention to certain life challenges. June is a month of transition, not only the entry into summer, but transitions like graduations. I have a child graduating from high school, but also one graduating from community college, with the prospect of both of them going off to live away from home. I hadn't realized how this transition was affecting me personally until I had other people, both clients and personal relations, discuss with me the challenges they were having from their own transitions. One person contacted me seeking support for what she called caregiver burnout. The transition was from being a married person to being a caretaker of an aging spouse who was at the end of life. This person spoke of the overwhelm, resentment, and inability to take care of themselves. And this is something that is very, very common for people that are caring for a spouse that is sick or aging, or even for children, caregiver burnout. Another person I spoke with is looking at the prospect of closing down a business they've had for over 50 years and even possibly selling their house. These life transitions, including retirement, can be quite difficult to navigate. Our subconscious mind likes things to stay the same. It doesn't want to change, but we all know that the only constant is change. The key, of course, is to stay centered and grounded in our bodies, accept the change, and move through the fear and uncertainty without the tendency to catastrophize. I'll be doing a subject on this particular topic soon. I'll be doing a podcast on this particular subject soon. And their life is always a series of transitions. And as we become more conscious and more aware, it can become overwhelming to try to navigate these particular transitions. So, again, staying into the body, acceptance, having the confidence you can make it through. All right, so my latest obsession, if you want to call it that, is the series True Detective. I've just finished the first season. It's quite good. However, I do try to limit my television viewing to 3 or 4 hours a week. I don't binge watch, and I only really watch one thing at a time. What I prefer to do in the evenings is read, or at least try to read. I'm really making a concerted attempt to read every single night. I'm currently reading two books, both that I've read before, and I'm sure I will continue to reread these books into the future. One is a pretty famous book from 1972 by Carlos Castaneda titled Journey to Ixtlan, The Lessons of Don Juan. If you're not familiar with the books of Carlos Castaneda and you are interested in shamanism and indigenous wisdom, or interested in just a really good read, check out Castaneda's books. This is the one I'm currently reading, Journey to Ixtlan, and this is a hardcover book. I think it's an original release that I got online. There's so much to say about these books. I won't go into that here, but Castaneda caused quite a sensation with these books in the late 60s and early 70s. So if you're curious, start with a Wikipedia search on Carlos Castaneda. You might be interested in his life and the mystique that surrounds him. The other book is by a guy who goes by the name of Jed McKenna, called Spiritually Incorrect Enlightenment. This is the book. This book is part of a trilogy of books that McKenna has written on the subject of enlightenment, or what he calls truth realization. However, it's very much not a warm and fuzzy candles and incense approach to truth or non-duality. It's more of an invitation to set everything on fire and see what is left that is true. Intriguing? Yes, but also very confronting. And again, the mystique of this guy, Jed McKenna, is that's not his real name. Nobody really knows who he is. But the books are really, really good reads. Very interesting if you're interested in these particular subjects of non duality, truth realization, and enlightenment, which I am. One final observation as I was on my walk around the local lake yesterday, I spotted a group of runners running up a very steep hill, and it was pretty hot. Someone was shouting at them to keep running, like, go, go, go. So I'm guessing it was a local high school cross country team in training. And it reminded me of when I ran cross country in high school and trained by running up steep hills over and over and over again. Our team went on to become one of the best cross country teams in California that particular year. And that training, as hard and arduous as it was, gave me an incredible confidence in my body and the ability to have endurance in all areas of my life. But quite honestly, I owe it all to the two coaches I had because they knew I could do things that I didn't know I could. They believed in my ability to do things that I didn't believe I could. And that is the value of a coach. And if you go to tedmoreno.com/blog and read this particular transcript, you can click on the links to a previous podcast that I've done on the value of a coach. If you are in need of hypnotherapy or high performance coaching, you can reach out to me at tedmoreno.com/contact to request a complimentary phone consultation to see if hypnotherapy and coaching is right for you. In closing, let me leave you with a quote by Mark Twain, who said, "Keep away from people who try to belittle your ambitions. Small people always do that, but the really great ones make you feel that you too can become great." Mark Twain said that. Thank you so much for tuning in today. And again, I'd love to hear from you. Take good care of yourself and hopefully somebody else. Bye now.